Just last year, Apple produced an ad where they showcased a very angry black woman chastising everybody at Apple because of climate change.
In 2020, you promised to bring Apple's entire carbon footprint to zero by 2030. Henry David Thoreau over here said we have a profound opportunity to build a more sustainable future for the planet we share.
I think our 10 o'clock said the same thing.
They all do.
But now, in the aftermath of Trump's election, Apple has a very different ad celebrating the nuclear family and the power of family values. This is one of the most pro-family ads that Apple has ever created. Check it out.
Are you serious? Oh, guys, thank you. Did you know this is going to
I got the moon.
John, listen.
Light the fire. You place the flowers in the vase that you bought today.
There's a change in the air. There's something happening in the culture. Ever since Trump's win, there sure seems to be a subtle return to normalcy. If you like faith, family, traditional values, truth, reality, and other seemingly important things, you should celebrate this. Trump's repudiation of leftist values and its version of America is working. And in the next 4 years, if you want to see more of what we saw in that Apple ad, then we have our work cut out for us. So today, as we look at Hunter's pardon, I'll show you why Kash Patel's nomination will be a very good thing. And then I'll also show you one of the most effective conservative boycotts in American history, and a new movie about Christmas and Satan with Jack Black that has a bunch of conservative Christians riled up. But I'll show you why I think it may be a good thing. We'll talk about that and more today on Indie Thinker. Welcome to the show. My name is Reed Huberman. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. So if you like today's show, or if you have liked any of our past shows, I want to highly encourage you to do something, and that is to become a member of Indie Thinker. By doing that, you will gain access to all sorts of exclusives, but you'll also help us create the future of conservative Christian media. Now, I know what you're thinking. Everybody and their grandmother's mother has a membership that they want you to sign up for, and you only have so much money to go around. However, I want to encourage you to think about Indie Thinker as a place where you invest your time and your money, because through Indie Thinker, you will not only be gifting yourself the opportunity to deepen your Christian worldview, but you will also be able to help other people do that. So I want to highly encourage you not only to sign up for a membership for yourself, but to give it as a gift to other people. And it's only $7 a month. When you do that, you'll gain access to all sorts of exclusive content, including this month's free giveaway, one of the best books outside of the Bible ever created. We're giving away an audiobook of A.W. Tozer's The Pursuit of God. Honestly, it's one of my favorite books, one of my favorite authors, and you'll really get a whole lot out of that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Next month, you'll be getting a free movie and a movie review that I think will be very beneficial to you. So if you want to deepen your worldview and you want to change the future of conservative Christian media, I highly encourage you to go to indiethinker.org/support, sign up for a membership, and then gift one to a friend. All right, so this past weekend I saw Bonhoeffer, and I have to give you a bit of a warning before I jump into the movie review. I'm going to be a little tedious here, simply because I know a lot about Bonhoeffer, and he's a bit of a hero of mine. So you'll have to forgive that, but also there probably will be some spoilers in what I'm about to share with you, because surprise, he does die in the end. But if you don't know that, honestly, you need to read as much as you can about Bonhoeffer, and then you definitely need to go see the movie regardless of this movie review. But the fact that he dies is important not only because he's a martyr for the faith, but also because he dies confronting one of his Christian views. See, Bonhoeffer was a German theologian and a pacifist, but he was a pacifist only up until he came face to face with evil incarnate, one of the greatest existential evils to ever exist in the Third Reich and in Hitler. So he became an anti-Nazi dissident, and in order to actually put his faith into practice, he had to, or at least decided to, become involved in a plot to assassinate Hitler that ultimately failed and ended in Bonhoeffer's death. But the movie and the story of Bonhoeffer is great because it really stands in as a proxy for, I think, the importance of culture war, of doing real things that make a difference in the culture. See, Bonhoeffer is a perfect example of this. Now, he's also probably a perfect example of how often we get Christianity so wrong, because we want to tame Christianity, but Bonhoeffer knew that in the face of real evil, that we can't sit back in church and cloister ourselves and pretend that evil doesn't exist. When we come face to face with evil, Christians better have an answer.
And Bonhoeffer's answer was silence in the face of evil is evil itself.
So we have to have an actionary Christianity. And you'll see that hopefully in this trailer for the film.
Hitler has captured the nation's imagination, Dietrich.
Bravery is a rare commodity. You will go to England as our spy.
What good is the church if it doesn't speak for the victims of the state?
The church's job is to kindle peace, peacefully.
Oh, you mean silently?
I need you to understand that your life will not be the same after I speak these words. We have devised a plot to assassinate the Führer. Guide our hands. Guide our trembling hands.
God sent Germany a true savior!
All right, so first I want to start off with the idea that this movie is good. This movie is decent, but it also falls under the weight of its own lead character. A movie about Bonhoeffer better be really, really good. And I have to tell you, this movie started off very, very boring. And I understand there's some things that need to be discussed and understood in order to truly understand Bonhoeffer, but a lot of that could have been done much simpler and much quicker. Now, one of the things that also is kind of a sticking point in the film, and it's just a minor thing, this is where I get a little bit tedious, to be honest with you, and it's the theological issues that we see present in Bonhoeffer. I was almost certain that we would see liberation theologian Bonhoeffer in his Harlem days, but we didn't quite see that. It kind of verged on that, but it's obviously clear that any Christian during Bonhoeffer's time that saw the kind of racism that must have taken place and even New York at that time, obviously a Christian would have a problem with that, but that does not mean that all of a sudden that Bonhoeffer becomes a liberation theologian. And the people that he encountered, they weren't liberation theologians. They were actually more akin to Pentecostals. And as a result of that, it really engendered a understanding of the real transcendent God as a personal God. So that's really what his time in Harlem did. And that's so important to the movie for this reason. When God is that real to you, when the transcendent God comes to dwell with mankind and to be a part of a man's life, then you become responsible for actually following through on obeying some of the things that we find in the Bible. And this obviously is so important as it comes to the reality of Hitler and the Third Reich. When there is a real God on the throne, you can't just sit back in church and watch this stuff take place. No, the Christian church has to have an answer, and the German church largely did not. That's why Bonhoeffer created the confessing church. Now, I do have to say, on top of that, one of the things that a little bit bothered me about the movie in terms of the theology of Bonhoeffer is the religionless Christianity stuff. Now, to be sure, this is something that Bonhoeffer said, but Bonhoeffer says this not as a modern Christian would say. In other words, he's not saying, I'm spiritual but not religious.
Not religious, they're spiritual.
I have a relationship, but I'm not religious. Many times when Christians say that, what they actually mean is let's get rid of the laws and the regulations found in the Bible and let's try to develop our own Christianity. Let's keep the Jesus guy because he's really cool. But let's get rid of the rules found in the Bible. Ultimately, in doing that, you've just created your own religion. And Bonhoeffer would be absolutely against that. So Bonhoeffer isn't saying let's have a relationship and not be religious, because he would say Christianity is a religion like all intelligent Christians would. What he's simply saying is this, is that the German church of his time refused to take a stand against Hitler, and so they were just purely a tradition, but there was no Jesus, no real God involved in anything that they did. That's where the movie really does shine. It doesn't shine so much, and this is kind of one of the bad things of doing such a lofty movie about such a lofty topic, is that this movie only cost $40 million thereabouts, and they're trying to make a World War II movie. And in the process, they do that without showing a single kind of combat scene. They really do not show very many depictions, or at least anything really gripping in terms of Jewish oppression and what was going on at the time. And so it lacks some of those more emotional elements that you would find in a World War II movie that we have come to expect. And in that way, I'm going to say something that may upset my Christian audience, because I really, really wanted this movie to be great. But I feel like a movie like Valkyrie was actually better at kind of portraying this idea of standing up against your own country when it has gone off the path. And this is where it's important for us to watch today. Not only are we seeing Free Palestine protests on college campuses and anti-Semitism rise in our midst, and Christians need to have a response to that, but we are also seeing a kind of pacifism take over the modern day church that I think is important for us to combat. I think we need to grab a hold of the tradition of Bonhoeffer. And so this is where the movie really shines, when Bonhoeffer finally jumps onto the scene as a dissident, not only rebuking the Third Reich in church, but also being implicated in a plot to assassinate Hitler. Now, this is so important for us because in the modern day, Christians are far too quick to kind of resort to platitudes and to calling for nuance rather than actually being involved in getting their hands dirty in what I believe is an important battle for our time, standing for truth and standing against the attack that we're seeing on reality all the time. Now, you can kind of see this modern impression of a kind of anti-Bonhoeffer in what Russell Moore says in this kind of old clip that I think is relevant to the overall message of the Bonhoeffer movie. So here's Russell Moore of Christianity Today talking about how we need to rationalize with our enemies rather than stand against them. Check it out.
I mean, the primary problem I think right now for religious liberty is not that you have people who are plotting to destroy religion. I mean, there are some people who, of course, are doing that. But I think most of the problems come with people who just don't get religious motivation. And so they assume if we apply pressure, cultural pressure or political pressure or legal pressure, we'll get you where you're going to be anyway, which is in a more secular, progressive direction. And so I think part of it is just explaining to your secular neighbors what it means to be motivated by the fear of the Lord, what it means to be people who really do believe that you're going to give an account before the judgment seat of Christ. And so equipping your people to be able to have those conversations, I think that's actually more important.
So when Russell Moore tells us that simply what we need to do is we need to explain to people who are against Christianity or explain to people who might be enemies of the faith kind of what we believe and that would be sufficient, this is a fundamental misunderstanding of what we're truly facing in the culture today. So if we care about the future of our country, we cannot take the kind of escapist mentality of Christians like Russell Moore, who seem to want to swipe away at the culture war and pretend that it doesn't exist. I can't help but believe that this is nothing but escapist Christianity that is dispensational in its worldview and believes left behind is actually where we're at as a society. Eventually, Jesus is going to take us up, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Let's just love people as much as we can and go to church. Unfortunately, that is the recipe for much of the destruction that we're seeing right now in our civilization. If we fully understand, like Bonhoeffer did, the time that we're in, then we will not sit back and be silent. And God forbid the church ever be silent when it needs our voice the most. So what would Bonhoeffer do? Well, he'd probably pray the Lord's Prayer. Instead of saying, let the church be separate from the government, he would say, Lord, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I think what we need today is a bunch of Christians who take the Boniface option. So what's the Boniface option? Well, Boniface is a guy well known, and you can see him depicted this way, as a dude who cut down a tree that was dedicated to Thor because he refused to bow his knee to the cultural gods of his day. He wasn't going to win people just with niceties. He was going to win people by making sure to get rid of all of the pagan aspects of the culture. Bonhoeffer did it, and I think we need to do it too. Having a Christianity that doesn't make a difference is like saying that you were hit by a semi-truck while you were walking on the interstate, and that semi-truck was going 60 miles an hour, but I didn't get a scratch. That would be ridiculous. No one would believe you because it would certainly have made some kind of impact. And that's the same thing with our faith. If there is no difference in your life, if there is no difference in the culture, then it could be that you didn't get the real thing, or that you're just not standing for it. But God forbid there ever be an eerie silence coming from the church, the place that can make the biggest difference in the culture. And I'll show you why it matters today in our top stories. By now, you have already heard that Joe Biden is actually still alive. I know, surprise. And he is still the president, because just recently, one of his last acts in office was to do what a nepotistic despot would do, which is to pardon Hunter Biden, his son, from all criminal activity he has done over the last 11 years. Now, I want to read the pardon to you very briefly so that you can hear Joe Biden's heart as a loving, supposed father. Today, I signed a pardon for my son, Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision-making, and I kept my word even as I have watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Without aggravating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are most never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Now, this is true of Democrat DAs, but when you actually commit a felony, you are supposed to go to jail for that. Anyway, it goes on. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addictions but paid them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. Joe Biden has told us that he hopes we understand that as a president and as a father, he's just doing this because it's the right thing. It's the right thing to do for his son, except for the fact that it wasn't the right thing to do when just only months ago, Biden promised us that he would never pardon his son. So apparently it was wrong then, and it's still wrong now. But here's him promising that.
But let me ask you, will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
Democrats have told us over and over again that no one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one is above the law.
No one is above the law.
Nobody is above the law.
No one 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 is above the law.
Apparently that's not true. Hunter Biden is absolutely above the law. And that, Donald Trump would disobey all constitutional norms, which Joe Biden has done since he's been in office. But let's also be really clear about this. There were people online who also objected to anybody decrying this and said, this is what any good father would do. If you, as a father, you would do this for your son. No, that's not true. Actually, a good, loving father makes sure that his son reaps the consequences of his actions, or he is setting his son up to be an unvirtuous man. So we want our kids to experience consequences because those consequences shape us and mold us and help us be better. So to alleviate the consequences of his son's action, especially as an adult man, shows that Joe Biden is not a good father at all. And likely he's doing something else anyway, because I want to read a little bit more and show you that actually Joe Biden is up to doing more than just pardoning his son. So it goes on and it says this. Be it known that this day I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States, pursuant to my powers under Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1 of the Constitution, have granted Robert Hunter Biden a full and unconditional pardon for those offenses against the United States which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from January 1, 2014 through December 1, 2024, including but not limited to all offenses charged or prosecuted. Oh, so for the past 11 years, Hunter Biden, no matter what he did, not just the gun charge and not just the tax evasion, these little things that apparently should just get a little slap on the hand according to Joe Biden, but it's anything that this guy did. Well, what might that include? Might that include around $11 million from the Ukraine that Hunter Biden picked up just because his last name is Biden? All while Joe Biden makes sure to ship out billions of dollars to the Ukraine? Conflict of interest there at all? But it's not just that. It's also within that time frame of the last 11 years, Hunter Biden was picking up millions of dollars also from Chinese businesses, enriching himself on his father's name. Now, obviously, this sure seems to be what this blanket immunity is all about. Otherwise, Joe Biden could pardon him for these specific crimes if these are really the contention. But I think we all know they are not. Really, this has to do more with the fact that Kash Patel is likely going to become the next director of the FBI, as Donald Trump released on social media that Kash Patel would be his nomination for director. Now, this sent Democrats in full panic mode because they know that Kash Patel will step into his role as FBI director and absolutely clean house. And he no less than promised this on Sean Ryan's podcast.
And the biggest problem the FBI has come out of its intel shops. I'd break that component out of it. I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops. You're cops. Go be cops. Go chase down murderers and rapists and drug dealers and violent offenders.
Now, the media in the wake of this have come out and they have promised you that Kash Patel is a right-wing extremist and he is totally unfit for office. Therefore, there's no way that he'll ever make muster, and we must decry this as much as possible. Here's Midas Touch telling you exactly that.
Donald Trump has just nominated Kash Patel to be the new FBI director. Many have said that Kash Patel would be the most dangerous person to ever hold that position or any position of leadership in the United States government. Kash Patel is a right-wing extremist. He was featured on Steve Bannon within the past year or so, where he stated that he will go after any media company that speaks negatively against Donald Trump. He also spread numerous conspiracies saying that the FBI was involved in the January 6th insurrection. He's closely tied to various Trump companies and has sued the FBI before. He's someone who is not qualified to hold the position.
Now, you're going to hear this more and more and more, especially as we lead up to January, that Kash Patel is an absolutely unqualified right-wing extremist and he's a loyalist to Donald Trump. This is not true. First of all, let me just touch the claim of him being unqualified. So Patel served as the former chief of staff to acting Secretary of Defense Christopher Miller. He's responsible for leading the secretary's mission at the department. He's responsible for providing legal counsel to the secretary on all matters concerning the department's operations. He's a former prosecutor, and Patel also served as the deputy assistant to the president and senior director of counterterrorism at the National Security Council. Patel's responsible for things like eliminating ISIS and al-Qaeda leadership such as al-Baghdadi and Qasem al-Rimi, and the safe reparation of numerous American hostages. So Joe Biden's just got Brittany Griner to his credit, whereas Patel has many hostages that were rescued as a result of his work. He's served as the principal deputy to the acting director of national intelligence, where he oversaw the operations of all 17 intelligence community agencies and provided the president's daily briefing. So, more than that, he's also not a quote-unquote right-wing extremist. He's not just a Trump loyalist, but actually he's a very moral man who has promised to live and abide by the Constitution. Here's Kash Patel speaking to Steve Bannon, telling him exactly what he will do if he gets into a position of power.
Kash, I know you're probably going to be head of the CIA, but do you believe that you can deliver the goods on this in a pretty short order the first couple of months so we can get rolling on prosecutions?
Yes, we got the bench for it, Bannon, and you know those guys. I'm not going to go out there and say their names right now so the radical left-wing media can terrorize them. But, excuse me, the one thing we learned in the Trump administration the first go-around is we got to put in all America patriots top to bottom. And we got them for law enforcement. We got them for intel collection. We got them for offensive operations. We got them for DOD, CIA, everywhere. And the one thing we will do that they never will do is we will follow the facts and the law and go to courts of law and correct these justices and lawyers who have been prosecuting these cases based on politics and actually issuing them as lawfare. We will go out and find the conspirators, not just in government, but in the media. Yes, we're going to come after the people in the media who lied about American citizens, who helped Joe Biden rig presidential elections. We're going to come after you. Whether it's criminally or civilly, we'll figure that out. But yeah, we're putting you all on notice. And Steve, this is why they hate us. This is why we're tyrannical. This is why we're dictators, because we're actually going to use the Constitution to prosecute them for crimes they said we have always been guilty of, but never have.
Yeah, by the way, the Constitution is there to protect American citizens and also to protect American citizens from American citizens who violate the Constitution. So this is actually a good thing. But the most rich thing of all of this is when Midas Touch tells us the greatest right-wing bona fide of Kash Patel. It's that he has an online store and he posts memes.
Kash Patel, over the past several years, has been posting photos like this of himself, meme lord, and it's photos of himself. He also has a clothing line, Kash. The Kash tees available for a limited time, sold on Donald Trump's social media platform.
Well, if that's all it takes to make you a right-wing extremist, to believe in the Constitution, to post memes, and to have an online store, well, then call me a right-wing extremist. No, we all know what this panic is. This is that when Kash Patel gets into the position of FBI director, what is he actually going to do? Oh, well, we all know. He's going to go clean house. He's going to make sure that the corruption in that organization is rooted out. And that means actually these FBI agents investigating crimes that have taken place, yes, by political officials and their kids. This is what this is really all about. He had to pardon Hunter to pardon himself because he knows that Kash is coming for him. But this is the point at the end of the day for me. When good people get in positions of power, that is a good thing. This is why Christians cannot bow out of the culture war. We need Christians on the front lines doing things. Now, I'm not saying Kash Patel is a Christian. I don't really know where he stands as far as that's concerned. All I'm saying is that Kash Patel seems to be a morally good man. And him being in a position of power is a threat to establishment power that intends to do bad things. And that's why we as Christians should applaud this as much as we possibly can. And instead of bowing out of the culture war or tapping out because we can't find the spine to actually stand for truth, we should actually applaud this kind of thing and engage ourselves. The silent majority cannot be silent anymore. But the good news is that some Christians are starting to realize this, that traditional values and faith actually really can make a difference in the public square and in a way that's beneficial to culture. And this we'll see in our next story, where Robby Starbucks actually was responsible for one of the biggest conservative boycotts ever, as Walmart has now come out to say that they are no longer going to be funding DEI or Pride initiatives. Check this out. Walmart, the world's largest retailer, is the latest corporation to roll back its diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. The company confirmed the changes on Monday, November 25th. Walmart said it will not renew its Center for Racial Equity, a $100 million philanthropic commitment to address the root cause of gaps in outcomes experienced by Black and African American people in education, health, finance, and criminal justice systems. The initiative was launched in 2020 following the murder of George Floyd. The company also told the Associated Press that it plans to more closely monitor third-party online sellers to ensure they do not sell sexual and transgender items marketed toward children, including chest binders. Additionally, Walmart confirmed it will stop participating in the Human Rights Campaign Corporate Equity Index. That's huge. An annual survey that assesses policies and benefits for LGBTQ plus employees. So why is Walmart backing away from these things? Did the company finally realize that maybe racial animosity isn't that good for America? Did they stop believing that racism exists? No, probably not. Did somehow they come into contact with a really great trans argument? Maybe they heard Matt Walsh or maybe this show. And they realized that actually transgenderism flies in the face of everything we know about reality. It's upside down world, it's negative, it's clown world, and it doesn't make any sense, and it flies in the face of biology. Did they actually encounter somebody that helped them realize that? No, because no one ever argued them into a convincing transgender gender ideology position in the first place, because there isn't such a thing as that. No, what happened is Walmart finally realized that it was not financially expedient for them to back these things anymore because there was an outcry against what they were doing. You can see that as the report continues. Check this out. We've been on a journey And no, we aren't perfect, but every decision comes from a place of wanting to foster a sense of belonging, to open doors to opportunities for all our associates, customers, and suppliers, and to be a Walmart for everyone. Walmart representatives said in a statement, the changes came weeks after President-elect Donald Trump, a critic of DEI policies, won the election. Robby Starbucks, a conservative commentator who has been vocal and critical of companies with corporate DEI policies, called out corporations on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. So I want you to see what Robby said Walmart has promised him personally that they would stop doing. Check it out.
After various conversations, I am very proud to report to you guys that Walmart has decided on making some changes. I'm going to lay out what those changes are for you and explain how massive this is for our movement. We are unstoppable at this point with a 100% flip rate where we change corporate America and get them back to a culture of sanity and neutrality. Bullet point number 1, Walmart will be removing all inappropriate sexual and or transgender products that are marketed toward kids, things like chest binders for teenagers or books that encourage transitioning. That is all going to be gone. Bullet point number 2, Walmart is going to review and stop funding to all events that could be sexually inappropriate for kids. That includes drag queen story time or pride events that expose kids to sexually inappropriate topics. That's all going to stop going forward.
Guys, this is why the culture war matters. You can actually make a difference in one of the biggest corporations in the world by allowing your voice to be heard. Now, you do that through your pocketbook very often with these corporations, but that's important. And I know there's going to be people who say, well, we can't boycott everything, and gay people need a place to shop too. Now, first off, yeah, you can't boycott everything, so be selective with what you boycott, but boycott nonetheless, and quit making excuses for why you can't make a difference, and start actually figuring out ways that you can. And then the whole gay people need a place to shop too, well, they have one. It's called Walmart. They always could and always will be able to shop at Walmart. They just don't have to shove gay propaganda down our throats in order to make that a place for gay people to shop. All that to say this, I believe conservatives have a responsibility to create an inhospitable environment to the people who want to create values in the marketplace of ideas that are antithetical to human flourishing, things that are bad for people. I think Christians should take a stand against all of that, and when we do, we can make a difference. So for those of you who say that we're just going to do this through love, I have something to tell you. There are people that you'll be able to reach with love. There are people you'll be able to reach with reason. But there are people, the only way that they will listen to you is if you make them start to experience a little bit of discomfort, just like we just did with Walmart. Walmart wasn't going to listen to Christian moral values. Walmart wasn't going to listen to people of good conscience. They were going to listen to one thing, the almighty dollar. But when they listen to that, when they're forced to listen to that from the silent majority, we can actually start making a difference in society if we start speaking up. We'll get back to the show in just a minute. Before we do that, I want to make sure that you know that today's show is sponsored by our friends over at Sweet and Savory. Now, if you struck out at Thanksgiving, or maybe you're just looking for a great date night for you and your spouse, a great Christmas gift, I would say stopping by the Sweet and Savory Classroom is a great way to surprise your significant other. Now, not only will they teach you to cook a great meal, but you'll have tons of fun along the way. And even if you're not in this local area, you can do a stay-in date night by purchasing some of the online classes that they have where you can learn to make some of the most amazing meals. And I love those online classrooms because I can involve my kids with it as well. Eventually, they're going to have to learn to cook something to feed themselves. And my barbarian boys desperately need the help. And Sweet and Savory Classroom can help you with that and so much more. So in order to either book your next date night if you live in the Chattanooga area, or to check out all the online offerings they have, go to sweetandsavoryclassroom.com. And when you check out, make sure to use the promo code IndieThinker for a discount and to let them know that IndieThinker sent you. All right, let's jump into one final story. And this one is about Jack Black's new movie called Dear Santa. Now, Mark Driscoll has already gone on record and condemned the movie and rebuked Jack Black personally. But I'm going to simp for the movie a little bit here and make my conservative Christian audience a little bit mad with me today, because I actually think that this movie can serve a redemptive good. So the movie essentially is about this. A young boy mails his Christmas wish list to Santa with one crucial spelling error. So instead of spelling Santa, he spells Satan, and the letter makes it all the way to Satan. So a devilish Jack Black arrives to wreak havoc on the holidays. So this movie comes from the creators of Dumb and Dumber and shows us that Christmas is about to go up in flames. Here's a little bit of the trailer.
Let me show you a few of the things I could do for you.
I'll be right back.
It's Post Malone.
Leo!
Look, I'm worried Santa's going to trick me into getting my soul.
I think he's just confused.
We believe you.
No.
I tried everything. That kid's incorruptible.
What about doing something out of kindness?
I don't even know what you just said. I mean, I know all the words, but I just never heard them in that order.
All right, so here's the reason I'm simping for Jack Black in this film. First and foremost, I don't know what we think the vast majority of Christmas movies are. In fact, a classic for many people, I personally hate the film, is Christmas Story, I think it's called, the one with the Red Ryder BB gun. What is redemptive about that movie exactly? What is Christian about that movie? It seems to me to be more about unrestrained worship of capitalism than it does actually anything really, really good. Now, I know comment section is going to be filled after that comment, but that's okay. I'm sticking to my guns on that. Worst Christmas movie ever. Elf is way better. It's a Wonderful Life is probably the best Christmas movie. Anyway, all that to say, I don't know that the average Christmas movie that we watch on a regular basis is so redemptively good that we should praise those and not watch this. But more importantly, I think the reason Christians don't like it is just simply based upon the fact that it depicts Satan. But the problem with that is that whenever Hollywood depicts Satan, almost always, not always, but almost always, it's a depiction of evil and not an actual glorification of evil. You even see in the trailer that Satan is having a really hard time trying to get this boy to sell his soul to him. Because he can't really be corrupted.
I tried everything. That kid's incorruptible.
What about doing something out of kindness?
I don't even know what you just said.
I mean, that's a great message, I would say. That's a great Christmas message, that you can offer somebody all of the trappings of sin that it can provide for you. And it looks like that's hanging out with Post Malone. All the women you could want, gambling and never actually losing. You could get all of that, but it's still not enough to truly satisfy the soul. Well, frankly, I think that's like a really good Christian redemptive message, especially around Christmas, even if they don't come right out and talk about Jesus in the midst of it. And again, the Satan that we see on the big screen, the silver screen, is not really the Satan we find in the Bible. And this is the most important part that I would want to say to especially every Christian out there. I think that if we're not careful, we think that the theatrical versions of Satan that we see on the screen and that are incredibly over the top are more representative of the truth than the actual biblical version of Satan. But when we look at Satan in the Bible, he doesn't come around purchasing people's souls with pitchforks and a spaded tail or anything like that. Satan actually is really good at something far less obvious than that. So if we fall for a theatrical version of Satan rather than a biblical version of Satan and get all offended, we're going to miss the fact that Satan actually isn't that obvious. He's really good at something called deception. I mean, look at Satan when he's trying to tempt Christ in the wilderness. He's not asking Jesus to go check out porn. He's asking Jesus to do things like, hey, jump off the temple and then we'll get these angels to come and collect you and save you. And then when everybody sees that, they'll worship you. Well, wait a second. So Satan is actually interested in people worshiping Jesus? Yeah, but for all the wrong reasons. See, this is who Satan actually is. He is a deceiver and not just purely a tempter. He takes that which is good and disfigures it so that it can look evil. Inevitably, this Jack Black movie is only going to do the work of God in showing that evil cannot look good and you must stand for what is right and good. So I would encourage Christians not to be so afraid of Dear Santa and movies like it, but actually to pay way more attention to things that are way closer to home. Things that are much more deceptive, that have the veneer of looking good, but actually are really, really evil and poisonous. Maybe things like what Andy Stanley says here.
If one of us Christians has attempted to impose one of our Christian rules on you, I'm sorry. Anyone who said, but the Bible says, or Jesus said, or God, and they just try to impose one of our Christian rules on you, I just want you to know I am so sorry. How you choose to live your life is really none of our business. And if we had been doing this all along, chances are you would not have been offended by one of us. So this is completely on us. But this is what he said. You're going to love this. Lead a quiet life, and you should mind your own business. Where did we get the idea that somehow we are to impose our rules, our family rules on people who don't even want to be in our family? But one last thing. While the rules don't apply to you, God's love definitely applies to you. In fact, he loves you as if you were already in the family and related.
What you just heard from Andy Stanley is actually a very poisonous lie. First and foremost, you don't need to apologize for me or any other Christian. I don't apologize, and I don't think we have a need to apologize, because when we tell people that they are under God's laws, whether they go to church or believe in Jesus or not, when we tell them that, that's actually a very benevolent thing to do, because, point of fact, they are under God's law, whether they want to believe it or not. And also, I think it's important to realize this, that Andy Stanley is making a very immature mistake here. Love is not antithetical to law. God is not a holy granddaddy that only just wants to shower the grandkids with toys and candy so that he can be the cool granddad. No, God is a holy father because he loves his kids, and by loving them, he imposes certain laws on them because it's good for them. And by the way, in case you were wondering, the church is not just God's house. All of creation is God's house. So every single person on this earth is a child of God in the sense that they are under God's authority. Not a single one of them is going to be able to subvert God's law and be outside of God's law. So this is very simple. When Jesus told us to go into all the world and to preach the gospel, he wasn't telling us just to tell people that Jesus loves them. He was telling us to implement an understanding of who God is, moral laws and all, and then to share that with people, because whether they like it or not, it is good for them. That's why it's important that we get this right. You heard more satanic lies in what Andy Stanley just said than you will ever hear in this Jack Black movie. The idea that you can't make enemies with the people that you're trying to reach is ridiculous. Jesus did it. I don't know if you've seen The Passion of the Christ or ever heard about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. The truth is that if you're going to be a Christian in a secular world, you are going to make enemies, but you'll be making the right kind of enemies. And then with any luck too, those enemies will one day be converted and come back to you and thank you that when you had the opportunity to lie to them in order to make yourself look good, you refused to do it and instead stood for the truth. That is a Christian witness that we need more of, and that if we have more of, we can change the world. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and go with God.